Thank you so much for joining us. So I am here today with Graham MacKenzie, who is the Director of AML and Economic Crime Risk here at Amiqus. And we are going to be talking in a bit more detail about ACSPs. So the ACSP regime came into effect recently, and there's been a lot of talk about it, a lot of things going around. You'll have probably read quite a lot about it already. But now the dust has settled a little, what we wanted to do is sit down, have a bit of a chat about it, and try to understand really what the details are, so dive into that a little bit more for you. So thank you, Graham, for joining me for this today. So you are our expert in all things economic crime and AML and whatnot. So tell me a bit more about ACSPs. So what are they? How did it come about?
Okay, thank you, Rachel. So I think probably good to rewind to start with. So probably back in the 1990s and the early 2000s, successive governments really tried to open up the UK as an accessible place to do business, created low barriers to entry, etc. But that opened up the market and made it vulnerable to abuse.
Right.
Companies House, unfortunately, didn't have any powers really to query the data which was being put on the register at that time, or to pursue enforcement where there was potentially fraudulent activity or potential money laundering going through. This all then made it easier for fraudulent activity to take place or money laundering to happen. The Economic Crime and Transparency Act, which landed in 2023, aimed at really kind of closing all this.
Okay.
By tackling economic crime, improving transparency, and strengthening the business environment overall. As part of this, there were significant powers being given to Companies House to verify information which was put on the register and remove, for example, fraudulent entities. The new ACSP, Authorised Corporate Service Provider regime, brought in a provision whereby if you're running, controlling or owning a company, you must verify your identity before putting stuff on the register.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that, really helpful. So how do firms become an ACSP? What's the process?
Yeah, so well, first off, ACSPs are professional services firms in the main, so they can be solicitors, they can be accountants, they can be company formation agents, etc. But they must be supervised by one of the 25 AML supervisors in the UK. So there are 3 statutory supervisors, those being HMRC, the FCA and Gambling Commission, and then 22 professional body supervisors such as the Solicitors Regulation Authority, the Law Society of Scotland, etc.
Okay.
If you want to then become an ACSP, and we'll go into a bit more detail as to why you might become an ACSP in due course, but you must then complete a registration, you must provide information about your business and your supervisory status, and a senior person within your business must then go through verification themselves, so identity verification themselves. And of course, inevitably, there is a £55 registration fee as well.
Right.
That will then get you a digital account to log into Companies House and a unique identity number as well.
Okay, fantastic. So you just touched on this slightly, but spell it out for me. Why would you go through this as a firm? What would it allow you to do? What's the benefits?
Of course. So being an ACSP or registering as an ACSP will allow you to complete identity verification for your clients.
Okay.
And that's really important from a client experience perspective, and again, we will go into that in due course. But probably more importantly, in due course, you must be an by becoming an ACSP, it will then allow you to register or file information on Companies House on behalf of your clients, which is a really big deal for most professional services firms.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. So it does sound like this is quite a big deal, and obviously a really good idea for professional services in this space to really get set up ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But what are the timelines for implementation of this?
Yeah, sure. So from the 18th of March this year, businesses could voluntarily reapply to become an ACSP.
Okay.
From the 8th of April, those controlling the company can verify their identity with Companies House, either directly with Companies House or through a third party ACSP. So, for example, their accountant, their lawyer, etc., etc.
Right.
From this date also, ACSPs themselves can verify or can disclose to Companies House that they have verified the client's identity.
Okay.
By the autumn, however, that becomes mandatory and they must be able to do that. I think it's really important also to note that from about spring 2026, if a professional services firm wishes to file information on the register on behalf of a client, and many professional services firms obviously do, that's a big part of their business,
Of course.
they must then become an ACSP.
Right.
Or they must then be an ACSP for those purposes.
Okay. Right. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. That's really helpful. So can we just go back one step, please, just to kind of clear something up for me. So what are the benefits of this for Companies House?
Okay, so you probably want to go back to the original aims of the Economic Crime and Transparency Act itself, right? So to improve data quality, to iron out inconsistencies, to aid transparency, helping Companies House validate and investigate discrepancies as well on the register. So that verifying identity allows Companies House, I guess, to be more efficient and quick when it comes to investigating possible discrepancies, possible errors on the register, and following up and remediating them. So in itself, that is then therefore safeguarding legitimate businesses, of course, and the public.
Right, fantastic. What are the key considerations that firms need to be thinking about? What do they need to be aware of?
Okay, yeah, so I think crucially, firms really must understand the enforcement measures brought in by the Act.
Okay.
It gave Companies House wide-ranging powers, the ability to query information, amend that information or reject information from the register, but probably moreover financial penalties, civil penalties, but also criminal prosecution.
Wow,
And
okay.
of course that's really serious. It's a really potentially very serious position to get yourself into. It would be punishable by a fine or in the most serious cases a prison sentence.
Right, wow.
So, I mean, to that end, I think up until now, when you're speaking to firms understandably are asking themselves, well, with so many potential pitfalls and risks, including criminal prosecution, and not so many upsides, we could send our clients directly to Companies House to do this. Why on earth would we take the risk and become an ACSP?
Of course.
But it's interesting because now it's here, the dynamic has shifted a wee bit, and firms I think are increasingly thinking about it through the lens of client experience.
Okay.
You know, so to ensure that the client journey that they undertake on behalf of their clients is not unduly impacted, and that experience, that client experience and the relationship they hold with clients isn't unduly impacted. So why would you ask them to go away to Companies House and do this directly with Companies House themselves and complete that verification process, especially when you think that there will be literally millions of people going to Companies House to try and verify their information all at the one time.
Yeah.
Perhaps, and there might be implications of that. Or, for example, the client goes away on holiday, completely forgets to do this, and we all do it, don't we? So these things will ultimately impact the client journey, because obviously in due course, firms will not be able to file information on the register without having completed that verification.
Right.
So it's almost a question of firms suddenly starting to think, well, actually, we could do this on behalf of our clients, and we could do it really quickly, we could do it smoothly, efficiently, and try and minimize the impact on the client journey.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind also that in due course, probably by the current timelines anyway, by spring 2026, to file information on behalf of a client, which again is a big part of a professional services firm's business, or many of them, this will become a mandatory process, and you don't want to be holding that up for your clients, obviously.
That's brilliant, thank you, that's really helpful. So something I wanted to touch on was, since the new regime, the ACSP regime has come out. There's so much content about it, right? Everybody's talking about it. It's something everywhere we look. So are there any specific resources that you've come across that firms should be looking at or be familiar with?
Okay, sure. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Inevitably, because the company's house changes have been on the go for quite some time now, including ACSPs, there is a lot of content out there, both in the web, on socials, on LinkedIn, etc. And a lot of it's very good content.
Yeah.
But I think it would be remiss of me not to mention the FAQs that we ourselves, Amiqus, have on our website on this. So please do have a look at them. But I think, let's get back to the core here. Companies House themselves have put out a lot of really good content on their website. They've got a dedicated website to wider Companies House changes, and including ACSPs, which is really good. But as a starter for 10, if you want to get up to speed on this, a really good place to start is the Companies House YouTube channel.
Okay.
Which has a lot of really kind of short, nifty videos on what you need to do if you want to become an ACSP, what the what the process is, what the timelines are, etc., etc. So yeah, that's where I would start, the Companies House YouTube channel.
Fantastic. Wouldn't have thought to look there, to be honest. So really good tip. Thank you, Graham. So you just mentioned actually Amiqus's FAQs, but which it's moved my train of thought over here. So obviously there's a lot of tech platforms such as Amiqus. What role do they play, or what can they play in the ACSP standards?
Okay, so first and foremost, I think in this day and age, I think it has to be said that digital verification is by far the most efficient, the most effective, and indeed the most secure method of verification over and above, say, manual verification. Yeah, so with so much kind of deepfake technology out there, fraud out there, I think digital verification is the future. So first and foremost, I think ACSPs, of course, also have to adhere to the Companies House standards in this space, and there is kind of a lengthy kind of document or two on the Companies House website on if you want to dive into the weeds on that sort of stuff. But a key one of those is the capability of any digital solution to validate cryptographic features.
Right.
What are cryptographic features? Well, they are security features within an identity document which verify the authenticity of that document, or indeed the identity of its owner. I guess many modern ID documents, such as passports, such as ID cards, include an RFID chip,
right,
which is embedded within the document, and that digitally stores cryptographic information, personal information on the holder, and a high resolution face image, which Amiqus can then use the biometric facial recognition technology to match against as well.
Yes.
I think importantly, Amiqus is one of the few digital providers out there that can use near field communication, so NFC, and
right,
you get it on mobile phones. For example, if you want to remotely or charge your mobile phone, you can use NFC capability, to do so, and that's in most kind of modern smartphones, and we can use that NFC capability to read the chip and the cryptographic features embedded in documents, and that NFC technology has been a fundamental of the right to work checks that Amiqus has been doing at scale for many years now. So that's why we have this facility.
Yeah.
Obviously, our process and the Amiqus platform uses biometric facial recognition as well, comparing live images of a subject with their passport or whatever, comparing contrast and ensuring that they're verifying the identity of that individual, and ensuring that person is the rightful owner of that document.
Okay.
So clients simply would download the Amiqus app, tap the mobile phone against this biometric passport, take a photo of the picture page of the passport, and take a video selfie. And ultimately, by merging all these technologies together, Amiqus can both ensure that we meet the standards of Companies House in the ACSP space, but also ensure an efficient and really effective and easy client experience,
Okay,
which
yes.
I think is fundamental as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think also for firms, we've also created templates within our platform, so kind of step-by-step processes for firms to go on that client journey with, which makes it hopefully easier for both themselves and their clients as well.
Fantastic.
Finally, I think it's important to ensure good record keeping in this. So time and date stamps of what you have done to verify someone's identity, and ensure clear and consistent audit trails, because at some stage you may be subject to a supervisory inspection, or indeed Companies House might make an inquiry of you, and you need to be able to show them very clearly, consistently, that you have done what you were supposed to have done as an ACSP.
Right, fantastic.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask one question off the back of something you just said, if that's okay. So you mentioned about the templates. Am I right in thinking then that what happens is you can have a template for everything that you need for the ACSP piece, and you can just send that out to the client and it's all taken care of, and you've got all of those stamps? Is that what?
Yeah, it's almost a process flow within the platform that you can set yourself. So if you wanted as a client to change that template to suit your own individual needs or requirements, yes, and that's something that can be internal, or indeed you can send out to the client for them to complete, and that gives you all the information, for example, you may need to undertake that check.
Fantastic, thank you. That's really helpful. So, is there anything else that we need to know, or have we covered it all?
Right, so, well, I think, look, inevitably quite a dry subject, right, in many regards, and I think that's maybe quite enough for one day. But hopefully this chat has been helpful to people and maybe have brought it to life a wee bit.
Yeah.
If I were to leave with a couple of things, I think for firms considering or weighing up their options in this and whether or not to become an ACSP, I would think about the potential impact on the client journey and experience should they decide not to be an ACSP. I would also think about the potential impact on their business if they ultimately can't file documents at Companies House on behalf of clients. I think that's a really big one. And I'd probably suggest that firms view this more as an opportunity. How can they turn compliance into a competitive advantage in this space?
Yes.
If the conclusion is that they do want to become an ACSP, don't wait. Start preparing now. Start talking to Amiqus or others in this space to think about what these options are. I obviously and Amiqus stand ready to help them to make this work under the bonnet, I guess, for both them and their clients.
Okay.
But thanks very much for speaking to me today.
Fantastic, thank you for that. Letting me pick your brain.
Not at all, thank you. Okay, thanks for listening.